This video is about why commercial real estate financing is easier to get approved for than residential, and I'm going to prove it to you with my own numbers. I had an actual pre-approval letter in hand for a duplex. I was pre-approved on paper and ready to go, but I couldn't get the loan done. Months later, I closed on a warehouse. It was a vacant warehouse that I had no pre-approval for, and it cost less than the duplex did. Let's get into why. So if you're new to my channel, I'm Jesse. I'm a commercial real estate investor, entrepreneur, and podcast host. And I help people get into commercial real estate. So let's get into it. Commercial real estate is valued on the income and not comps. So let's go back to the duplex for a second. When you apply for residential financing on a house or a duplex or anything up to 4 units, the bank is underwriting you as the buyer, you personally, your debt to income ratio, your credit score, your job history. They're also looking at comps, what similar homes nearby have sold for. I had a pre-approval letter that was literally double what the purchase price of the duplex was, but a pre-approval isn't a closed loan. It's based on a snapshot of your financials at one point in time. When it came down to actually closing the deal didn't go through. The bank was underwriting the property, they were underwriting me, and that picture wasn't strong enough to get the deal across the finish line. Not because of my personal financial situation, but because of the duplex. And I owned a duplex across the street, which made things a little bit more complicated for them. They didn't understand, and they weren't trying to write it off of that kind of loan. And that picture wasn't strong enough to get it across the finish line. Now, commercial real estate flips that completely. When you move into anything 5 units and up, basically any kind of commercial asset as well, with warehouses, retail, office, flex, lenders are primarily worried about you. They're worried about that asset and how it performs. They're worried about what does the property bring in, what does it cost to operate it, what's left over. That's really it. That's the question. So the first thing that should click for you is that in commercial real estate, the property has to qualify, not just you. Here's the part that surprises people the most. Commercial real estate is actually easier to get financing for than residential. And once you understand what the lender's actually looking at, it's going to make a lot of sense for you. On the duplex, again, I had a pre-approval letter and that didn't get me to the closing. The bank had to underwrite all that other stuff. But with the warehouse, that worked completely differently. I didn't have to have a pre-approval going in. The property was actually vacant when we bought it, producing no income, which helped me to tell the seller, hey, I can't get a loan on it. It's at a certain price that's going to fit the DSCR once we get it leased. So again, the first thing that we did was we figured out what it could lease for. Once we had a tenant lined up, lease in place, that property went from making no money to real predictable income that's leased for multiple years. So here's how simple this math can be. We bought the building for around $40 a foot, and we figured we could lease it at $6 a foot. We actually wound up leasing it for $6.50 a foot. And that's where I need to talk about DSCR. DSCR is essentially the debt service coverage ratio. That means that the rent has to get to a certain level above what the mortgage is. For this property, we were collecting $3,000 a month, and the mortgage was around $1,900 a month. If you do the math on that, you take the $3,000 divided by the $1,900, you're getting a DSCR ratio around 1.5. Most banks need to see 1.25 or better. Sometimes they can do 1.2. When you're doing commercial financing, that's what the bank is going to look at so that they can say this property pays for itself with room to spare. It's an easy approval. You don't really need a pre-approval. You don't need perfect history. You need a property that's income producing, that's going to cash flow day one, or you can show the bank, hey, once we get it leased, this is what it is going to cash flow for. And that's the same thing that drove the value up, and it drove it up fast. A warehouse that has a lease and is producing income wasn't worth what we paid for it in the beginning. So now it was worth close to 400 grand in under 3 months. That same building, we did a little bit of work to it, but the only thing that really changed was the income. That kind of forced appreciation doesn't just happen in a duplex. There's no lever or anything you can pull on it, but on a vacant commercial building, you can pull that lever, and that lever is the lease. That's the whole shift you need to understand. In residential, the bank is betting on you, but in commercial, once you understand how to create income through a lease, through a tenant, through the deal itself, the property starts qualifying itself, and it starts paying you back in the value at the same time. Now here's where things get interesting and where my story comes back in. I didn't close on that warehouse sitting there with stronger personal finances than I had on my duplex. My picture honestly wasn't any different. I closed on it because I brought in a partner and we raised capital around that deal. Here's the thing that nobody's really telling you. When you're starting out, the deal doesn't have to depend entirely on you. In residential, it's usually just you and the bank, your income, your credit, your name, all that stuff. If you don't qualify, the deal doesn't happen. In commercial, you can structure around your own weaknesses. You don't have to be the strongest financial piece of the puzzle. You just have to be a part of a deal that's going to be strong. Bring in a partner with capital from investors and structure that deal so the lender is looking at a combined strength instead of just yours. The property's income does a lot of the heavy lifting. The rest gets you covered by who you bring to the table. That's exactly what happened with the warehouse. I went from being the only piece of the puzzle to a much stronger puzzle. This goes back to something I said before. The vehicle matters as much as the effort. I could have kept grinding, trying to qualify for deals on the financial side, side and on the residential side, but instead I changed the vehicle. I brought in the right partner, the right asset, the right capital, and I got that deal underwritten, and it changed the game. That's the real unlock. It's not about waiting until your personal financials are perfect. It's about understanding that in commercial real estate, you have options that residential is never going to give you. So here's what I want you to take away from this. I had a pre-approval letter for a duplex, and it still didn't get me to the closing table. Months later, with no pre-approval at all, I closed on a vacant warehouse for less money because the deal qualified itself. Remember, rent against the mortgage. That's really the whole game. Get that ratio right, get the right partner or capital behind you, and commercial real estate will approve deals residential never will. If you're serious about getting into this space, this is the mindset shift that has to happen first. Stop thinking about whether you personally qualify, start thinking about whether the deal does. And soon we're going to talk about how you're not going to even bring any money to the table and you're going to get on these deals. If this helped you in any way, please subscribe. I'm documenting the whole journey in real estate between time, deals, lessons, and everything in between. And also check out my podcast. It's the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. You can find us on Apple Music, find us on Spotify, or anywhere you find podcasts. We take deep dives weekly on this stuff every single Wednesday morning, where we show you operators, lenders, etc., who are doing this daily that can help you get into it. I'll see you in the next video.